item to note in advance. Item 4, celebrating our faculty staff. Ms. Stabe could not be here this evening, so we will celebrate her at a future meeting, but otherwise no changes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Jen, second by Selena. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. So as I mentioned, Ms. Stabe could not be here, so we will bypass that for the evening. Next, celebrating our students. Dr. Macri.
Okay, this evening we have the high school. We have Mr. Kuckle, our principal, who's going to be celebrating our students. And like we mentioned earlier, we will celebrate Miss Stabe on another evening. Unfortunately, we have contact tracing that has to be done. That's a miracle. Fresh. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Kuckle. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Macri and the board. At this time, I would like to call Ian McMillan up to the podium here to join me.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kuckle. 1 second.
Oh, yep.
Can we turn the mics up? We're not really. Just trying to get
buttons
them
on, right? Is that okay?
And we have somebody on, Mr. Flanders on the phone, so I just want to make sure he can hear as well.
Just start talking? I can do that.
Could you just go closer to the mic, Mr. Kuckle, so that
Sure.
we can...
All right. Ian McMillan has been named a commended student in the 2022 National Merit Scholarship Program. A letter of commendation from the school and National Merit Scholarship Corporation, which conducts the program, will be presented to this talented senior. About 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. Although they will not continue in the 2022 competition for National Merit Scholarship Awards, commended students placed among the top 50,000 students who entered the 2022 competition by taking the 2020 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, also known as the PSAT NMSQT. Those being named commended students have demonstrated outstanding potential for academic success. These students represent a valuable national resource, recognizing their accomplishments as well as the key role their schools play in their academic development is vital to the advancement of educational excellence in our nation. We hope that this recognition will help broaden their educational opportunities and encourage them as they continue their pursuit of academic success. Ian is a vital member of our CHS community. He is an active member amongst many organizations, one of which is Student Council. He runs cross country and plays for our school baseball team. Ian, congratulations on your acknowledgement as a commended student. You are everything we want our Cromwell students to aspire to be, so congratulations. And what I have for you is a letter of commendation on behalf of the National Merit Scholarship Program. Congratulations. All right. Here we go. All right. If you want, we can take a picture outside. The whole family can get you. You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Macri. Thank you, board.
Thank you. Congratulations,
Congratulations.
Ian.
Okay, next, correspondence. Dr. Macri, any correspondence to share?
No, everything can be done in the reopening plan update.
Okay, the mics seem to be working much better now. Okay, public comments. Before we read the rules for public comment, are there any members of the public who would like to comment? Okay. We welcome and encourage public comments at our Board of Education meetings to make sure that our meetings are conducted respectfully while encouraging public participation, following all the rules for the public comment portions of our meeting. Thank you for your cooperation and participation. Individuals are welcome to address the Board of Education for up to 3 minutes each during the public comment portions of the meeting, but board members will not generally engage in dialogue. The Board of Education chair may at his or her discretion extend the time for public comments. Speakers must come to the podium and share your name and address. To facilitate efficient sharing of your comments, we encourage you to share any comments you may have about instruction, discipline, or learning materials first with your student's teacher, then principal, and followed by the superintendent before bringing the comments to the Board of Education. However, if you do not feel believe your comments have been addressed appropriately, or if you believe they should be shared with the Board of Education for any other reason, please feel free to do so. All comments must not include personal attacks, and comments cannot be discourteous, threatening, vulgar, or otherwise inappropriate. The board chairperson may, at his or her discretion, curtail any public comments or terminate any such individual's privilege of address at any time. If they violate any of these rules, violate reasonable standards of decorum, are boisterous, or are repetitious, the Board of Education reserves the right to limit public comments to particular topics. So, the floor is yours. Just push the button in the middle. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Tata. I reside at 6 Horse Run Hill in Cromwell, Connecticut. I would like to raise a few concerns that I have specific to the quarantine procedures. Last month, I reached out to Mr. Neshi to address a number of questions as I was dealing with a quarantine situation for one of my children who was deemed a quote-unquote close contact, but was not exhibiting any symptoms. Out of an abundance of caution, I monitored my daughter's body temperature daily during her quarantine, and it was consistently within normal body temperature, no sneezing, no coughing, no runny nose, and no other symptomatic indicators. During my conversation with Mr. Neshi, I asked him multiple questions which were somewhat addressed with the standard responses that ultimately point to the quote-unquote CDC guidelines. However, the following items could not be addressed, and I asked that he follow up with his colleagues at the Connecticut Department of Public Health. Since that time, it has been 3 weeks, and I have not yet received a response, so I decided to bring the outstanding items to the members of the Board of Education this evening for your review, your thoughts, and your feedback. Masks. What is the purpose of wearing a mask if these types of quarantine situations are still going to happen? If the masks are effective, then children that are not exhibiting any symptoms should not need to quarantine, in my opinion. Despite the loose definition of close contact that really has no logic nor any support, it is even more evident to me that masks are ineffective and actually causing more harm. Number 2, mask scientific data. Please provide the data supporting this requirement. And I'm not looking for the CDC guidance and recommendations, but the actual scientific data that supports the effectiveness of wearing a non-medical mask worn by individuals that are not appropriately trained on personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE, donning and doffing procedures. Number 3, no symptoms. Why are we quarantining healthy children? As I previously mentioned, my daughter did not have a fever, did not experience any flu, nor cold-like symptoms during the time she was sent home. If a child shows symptoms after being exposed, then I could understand a quarantine. But when they're exhibiting no symptoms at all, there really is no logic to keeping children home for 10 days. Where is the science and the data to support this protocol? Circumstances involving quarantined children as a result of quote-unquote close contact scenarios should have been essential data captured all along to determine the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of quarantine in healthy children. Number 4, additional data needed. It was explained to me that there have been multiple instances of numerous children and other members of the Cromwell school community who have had to quarantine over the past 18 months. Many of those individuals were in the same predicament as my daughter, healthy but deemed a close contact, and were required to stay home. Why have we not captured this data on these individuals to help and support these decisions? We should be focused on this as it is a critical component to fully understand the big picture and adjust the protocols accordingly to minimize the number of in-person school absences. And number 5, scientific data. Mr. Neshi confirmed there is data regarding the number of positive COVID cases we have had within the Cromwell schools. Can you provide the details of this data? How sick are the individuals? Are they being hospitalized? What are their symptoms? Are there long-lasting health issues? What are the numbers of cases we have seen in our schools, and how severe have these cases been? Again, critical data to capture and present to the community. Finally, as parents, We deserve to fully understand the details and the data that is driving the decisions ultimately impacting our children's education and overall well-being. Finally, I would like to point out a closing comment that was made to me by Mr. Neshi, which made me really think about this whole situation much further. Mr. Neshi indicated, quote, "We're lucky to have this guidance today." He compared COVID-19 to the Spanish flu of 1918 and the fact that at that time in history they did not have any guidance, and as a result many people woke up with the sniffles in the morning and died by dinner time. That is absolutely not the same situation we are dealing with today. Given the sophisticated level of medical expertise, vaccines, and therapeutics that are readily available, I have full confidence that our society is safe. As I'm sure you are all aware, the recovery rate of COVID is between 97% to 99.8%, depending on your age and your underlying health. We all need to focus on returning to normal, and what I mean by that, pre-COVID normal. Because the continued focus on COVID controls and restrictions is resulting in complete hysteria within our society, but more so negatively impacting our children in so many unfair and unjust ways. We need to really take into consideration the long-term effects of all these procedures and start to apply some logic to do what is right for our children who are the future of America. We live in a free world, and we do have the right to question authority when situations arise that are concerning and threatening to our overall well-being. When valid concerns are raised, stop passing the buck and pointing to the CDC guidelines because it is not consistent nor reliable information. This is unacceptable and unfair. As elected town members of the Board of Education, I'm pleading with all of you to do what is right for our children. Challenge the state, ask questions, and demand scientific, real evidence to support the requirements, restrictions, and controls that are in effect. This is no way to live, and we must challenge and represent and fight for our children's futures. Thank you for listening to me this evening.
Thank you. And we did have a public comment submitted by email, which I will read, from Mr. Matt DiDomizio. My name is Matt DiDomizio. I'm 57 years old and have lived and worked in Cromwell for basically my whole life. I'm writing this to make people and parents aware, according to the WHO website, which I encourage everyone to investigate, some of the harmful effects of wearing a mask. They state very clearly that it is unnecessary for anyone to wear a mask unless you are sick or caring for someone who is sick. They also list many harmful effects, both immediate and long-term, of wearing a mask and breathing in your own CO2. They list hypertension, high blood pressure, headaches, rapid heart rate, muscle twitches, chest pain, confusion, fatigue. This is extremely useful information for anyone deciding if wearing a mask is a good decision for their own health. Making any decision regarding someone's own health should always be that of the individual and/or parents of a minor. This is a constitutionally protected right, and it is illegal and wrong to impose anything otherwise. Also, parents need, now more than ever, to research what their children are being taught in these educational institutions. CRT, critical race theory, is fundamentally immoral and has been shown and proven, according to African-American psychologists Dr. Kenneth and Mamie Clark, performing the doll test in the 1940s, to cause psychological damage to children's self-esteem and self-worth. Thurgood Marshall, the very well-respected and acclaimed attorney, head of the NAACP legal defense team and later a Supreme Court justice, argued against CRT on May 17, 1954, in a very famous and consequential ruling, Brown v. Board of Education. He used the doll test as just one point to state the many harmful effects of CRT, and the court ruled unanimously that CRT had no place in education. I encourage anyone and everyone again to investigate CRT, and you will find that there are many flaws and harmful effects causing this. Inform yourself, inform your own decision. You can start with the August 2021 issue of the AMAC magazine and go from there. Thank you very much. That's it. Any other members of the public who would like to comment? Going once, going twice, 3 times sold. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next, introduction of new student representatives and report from student representatives. Dr. Macri?
So a big welcome to our new middle school representatives. We have Charlie Mandigo. How did I do, Charlie? Good. Thanks. Okay, let's see, Jillian. Jillian Sliz. Yes, 2 in a row. I welcome both of you. This is really exciting and sometimes a little overwhelming, but that's okay. I have full confidence, and so do the people who wanted you to be part of this committee, that you're going to contribute. And please feel free to contribute, because you're the most important reason why we're here, all 4 of you. Okay? So welcome. And we have Devin Riggio back and Olivia Polkowski as our senior reps, our high school reps. Sorry.
So before we turn it over just to our middle school reps, first, before you speak, just make sure the red button is on in front of your mic. And after you give your updates, you're free to stay as long or as little as you would like. Sometimes during the meeting, the board members will actually ask for input from students, so feel free to give your input or not. It's up to you. So I'll turn it over to the reps. Who's going to go first, high school or middle school? We'll go middle school first. All right. If you just push it once, and it should go on. There you go.
Okay. Cromwell Middle School students have had a wonderful first few weeks of school. Students have successfully transitioned back into our routines and are doing a great job socially distancing, wearing masks, and staying safe. We are all looking forward to a healthy and outstanding school year. The girls and boys soccer season at CMS is underway. Girls, coached by Miss Murphy and Mr. Willis, have practices after school every day. The team of 26 girls has won 3 games so far. They've had a great start to the season. The boys team, which was coached by Mr. Gloa and Mr. Anino, also practices after school every day. The team, made up of 15 boys, has had 1 win so far this season and are continuing to improve each day. Both teams will travel to Durham tomorrow. Good luck to all the players.
The CMS cross-country season is off to a great start. The team has really enjoyed conditioning and in the beautiful weather, competing against neighboring schools and watching their running times improve with each meet. Coach Murphy and Coach Bosworth are pleased to announce that each Falcon has shaved minutes off of his or her course time. Runners for the girls team include Peyton Kelleher, Chloe Rosler, Grace Hartley, Anaya Spoa Tatum, Ariana Mayo, and Eva Ardioli. Select Choir held auditions, and 12 students have been selected to participate in the group. They rehearsed mornings before school with Mr. Borgeson. On October 2nd, Mr. Lekowitz and Mr. St. Ange held their annual Source to Sea cleanup day. The group met by the Connecticut River and spent the day clearing trash and debris. This annual event is a great experience for students as well as our community.
High school?
For general announcements, the PSATs will be held this upcoming Wednesday for sophomores and juniors. Cromwell High School will have its first COVID-safe pep rally outside on October 22nd. This will be accompanied by a Spirit Week. Student Council is planning to help out during Trick or Trunk on October 23rd by donating their candy in time. Cromwell High School was able to finalize and update the school's dress code after thoughtful consideration of student and staff requests. Cromwell juniors and seniors participated in a Save a Life tour, which focused on distracted and impaired driving.
For sports, the girls' soccer team had their senior night last week, where seniors from both teams were honored. Yesterday, they played against Morgan and tied 0-0. They played Portland on Friday. The girls' volleyball team also had their senior night last week and had a great game. They unfortunately lost 0-3. They will play against HK tomorrow. The boys' soccer team played today against Morgan and won 2-1. On Thursday, they will play against Portland. The football team was featured as Game of the Week on October 10th against HK. They won 41-3. Saturday, they played against Valley and won 21-6. The boys and girls cross-country teams will have a Shoreline Conference meet on Thursday.
Great, thank you. Any questions for our student reps? Okay. And Charlie and Jillian, welcome again, and feel free to stay, but certainly no obligation. Okay, reports of liaisons from Town Council and Board of Finance. Our Town Council rep and Board of Finance liaison are not here today, so no updates. Superintendent's updates and responses to BOE comments, action items from prior meeting. Dr. Macri.
Everything is pretty much related to either, is on the new business agenda, so
Okay.
I can just wait,
That's fine.
if that's okay.
Okay. Presentations and reports of administration, 2021-2022 budget update, reference A in your packet. Ms. Burke?
Good evening, everyone. I've included in your packet the through September 30th, 2021 projection of our budget. Several things are estimated right now because we have just recently gotten data in for transportation from DADCO, and we are awaiting magnet school information, so those are estimated. And as we move forward, the numbers will get tighter and we'll have some more better general information for you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but we are in a good spot for the beginning of the year, so we will meet whatever challenges come up financially to the best of our ability.
Great. And while you're up there, you're also next on the item on the agenda for update on grant funds allocations of ARP and ESSER 2. Do you
Yes.
want to give that overview?
So at the last board meeting, there was a request that there was some additional information related to the spending plans for each of the grants. There are 2 grants that we are working through. ESSER 1 grant that we got last year, we did expend that last year. ESSER 2 grant is $659,418. And the way the spreadsheet is set up, I have the budget amount in the second column, year 1 and year 2, because this does span more than one fiscal year. And Dr. McLean and I added some descriptions and notes on the far right column to kind of outline our plan. This is going to be ongoing and it will change, and we are required to, I believe, every 6 months report to the state. So this is just our plan at the beginning. The same information applies for the American Rescue Plan, which is called also the ESSER 3. That's $1,316,324. Again, there's a budget amount column and year 1, year 2, and description. So as you can see, for both the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3, it's primarily leaning towards staff to help in multiple areas, such as summer programs, extended day learning, social workers. So there's a lot of detail in here. I don't know if you have really had a chance to look at it before the meeting and have any questions, but certainly either myself or Dr. McLean could expand on information if you needed it.
So, thank you, Ms. Burke. Just a clarifying question. Is year 1 on these charts last fiscal year, or is it this fiscal year?
Current,
Current fiscal year?
yes.
Okay,
Because these grants were provided to us recently.
got it. So I noticed that most of the spending is in year 1. Do we see any need to hold some more of that in reserve for year 2, or are we confident we'll be okay?
I'm confident that we will be okay. I think that a tremendous amount of time was put into how do we want to utilize these funds. So at this point in time, I would say we're pretty happy with the spending plan that we've put in place. As time goes by, we may decide that, say you can't find someone for a position, one of those positions, you can't hire the person that you want, then that money may indeed shift to year 2. It may shift to another priority.
Okay, so this is not
So,
set in stone, we can move this
This
around?
is not
I
set in
gotcha, okay.
stone. There is always the opportunity to do grant revisions with the state, so it is not, you better make your decision and you can't change it. It doesn't work like that.
Got it,
It's flexible.
okay. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Burke on either of the 2 agenda items? Catherine, please.
So, later on in the agenda, we're gonna talk about firewall, we're gonna talk about firewall security and unexpected expenses. Is that gonna bring us right back to these pages of where we are right here? Okay, then I'll wait for them.
Thank you. Any other questions? Selena, please. Yeah, John, we got Selena, and then we'll turn to you.
I just wondered what the home to school liaison position is for.
So, obviously, there's a ton of research that supports the connection between school and home. And we have a lot of students, particularly struggling. I think it's worse, obviously, because of the pandemic, but it was happening anyway. Our rate of 211 calls for support, even 911 calls lately, suicidal ideation, families feeling unsupported and not having a liaison between the school and home. So there's actual programming and training. There are positions in many other districts that are they're homeschool liaisons, and they're very specifically trained on how to build relationship success, especially with families who have broken relationships, either from something that they may have experienced when they were younger, or just because they don't trust the school. So it's someone who has those skills that can actually be the bridge and the trusted individual for the family and the school. When done correctly, it's very successful in bridging that gap.
Sounds great. It's definitely needed. I'm just curious how that plays into the social workers, because I thought that would be their role. Is this someone training the social workers?
So it's basically two different roles, but social workers, just like with school psychs and social workers, school psychs, therapists, everyone has a different role. Most families are comfortable with social workers. However, the social workers carryover piece is helpful to families so that they can get outside resources. But the family school liaison, their training consists of what can we offer these families from the outside component, where the social workers will help, but this is going to be the extension. They'll work with this person. It'll be very much affiliated, but it's really helping making that connection, and then making sure that these families have the wraparound services that are exceptionally difficult to find right now.
Okay.
So that person's hours may be a little different. Just so you know, sometimes it may be come in at 2 because they have an evening event with parents or such. It could be, it's a little bit more flexible than versus a social worker who works, the regular contracted day.
Go ahead, John.
So, I wanted to follow up on, but can you guys hear me okay?
You're breaking up, John. We can't really hear you consistently.
Sorry.
That's better.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
That better?
Much better. Thank you.
Anyhow, following up on this question, the home to school liaison seems to be dropped in.
Sorry, John.
Year two.
Sorry, John. You're breaking up again.
Is this better?
That's better.
Okay. So, this home to school liaison is only in year 1, and I can't see the air quotes, but is that based on the expectation that we would be back to normal in year 2 and have less need for this?
Thank you, John. We heard you.
No, it's based on the
And
expectation.
then I have one more.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll answer that one. We'll come back to you.
Like with every grant,
Yeah.
we know that there's only so much money, and we knew that we really needed someone like this. My expectation, that, Mr. Flanders, is that we find a way to keep this person, because I think this person is invaluable, and we're going to need this person, and I feel like we needed this person already, but we also know that it's not a mandated position. It's something that some people may think is a luxury, but it's not. So we will try to look at our budget and our district budget and really analyze our priorities, but I would like to see this position not go away and only go away if it really does have to. And hopefully with some attrition and things that are unexpected, we'll be able to figure it out. But as of now, we can only afford the 1 year.
Okay, John, back to you.
And then the next question, just elaborate on what the coaches are.
Sorry, John, you're breaking up again.
Could you elaborate on what the coaches are in the ESER 2?
Yes, those are 6 through 12. We have a numeracy coach and we have a humanities coach, a literacy coach in those positions. So they are working with curriculum, they're working with teachers, they're assisting with best practices, and they're 6 through 12 only, and helping us revamp curriculum. So they have quite a few responsibilities. If you want me to, I could send the job description to everyone if you'd like to see it. We do have one, and I don't mind sharing it, obviously, with you. Do you want me to do that?
Sure. Can't hurt.
Okay.
I think that would be great. I thought that was what it was. I was just refreshing my understanding.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
thank you.
That's it. You got
Any
it.
other questions, John?
No, other than I support the idea of keeping the school liaison for next year.
Me too.
Thank you, John. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Burke? Okay. No? Great, thank you. Okay. So reopening plan update, Dr. Macri.
Okay, so where do we start? We thought we were in a good place. We have seen increase in COVID cases in Cromwell Public Schools. Since just Friday, we've had 13 positive cases, only one being an adult and 12 students. We unfortunately, Miss Nurse Hansen is not feeling well and is unable to join us. But we have over 30 active positives, which is really hard to keep a tab on every single day because you're testing in, depending on why you've been quarantined in the first place or isolated in the first place. So that number shifts so quickly, a lot more quickly than it did last year. Also, we do have quite a few students quarantined. However, a lot of the quarantines are due to outside exposure on sports-related teams. But those guidelines are provided to the coaches on the outside. And then we have our guidelines that you all know of, and they're in our agendas and they're online, and you can look at them. And we did have a superintendent's meeting with the Commissioner of Education today, and it was actually in person, which was nice. We were 6 feet apart, very uncomfortable eating situation. However, we felt that it was important for us to get in front of the Commissioner of Education and really share. We're worried, right? Just like everybody else is worried. We have the safety and the well-being of our students. It's always at our forefront. And yet we are being asked to figure that out and balance their educational needs at the same time. And that's really hard, as you're hearing from parents, and you can ask teachers, and you can ask the administrators. We had the conversation this morning at leadership team meeting. It's a hard balance to try to figure out. So the question was asked, can we stop contact tracing? And that was a hard no from the commissioner. And that they are going to continue to advise, and we have our DPH call on Tuesdays too. So Tuesdays are rough days because you get a lot of, you leave with a lot of unanswered questions, and we're still waiting for an addendum 7 to be revisited, and we've been waiting for a month. So there are no changes as far as quarantining. There are no changes as of today. Of rules of how we're quarantining. Everything is the way it's been since the beginning of the school year, and the mask mandate is still in effect. However, all of these things were thoroughly questioned today, and are constantly every Tuesday by a lot of stakeholders. Again, we're asking for the same research. And there, if you do go to the CDC website and the State Department of Education website, there is a lot of research there that's pretty informational, but they just don't have enough research on some of the things that we really want to know. And that's just because it changes so abruptly. Delta variant is spreading very quickly. We were told today on the DPH call that pretty much it's rampant through pre-K through 5. You see a little bit of a slowdown, although we haven't seen too much of a slowdown at the middle school. And then the high school, we have seen a slowdown, we believe, because of the high kids are able to get vaccinated. So we are still in the same momentum that we have been, and I don't know if things are going to change, but I do know that we have Friday and Tuesday calls, and today we're able to meet in person and actually try to ask some of these very challenging questions and get something, but nothing has changed till, as far as we know today. So that is unfortunate. I also want to really let you know our nursing staff has been working unbelievably hard. So we need to look at the way we're doing things because of burnout, and I'm worried about their health and well-being. This weekend, they spent, there were 2 nurses on call, both over 15 hours of work on the weekend. Parents, and I understand, they want quick answers and they want to know very quickly. A lot of people, and I'm begging anyone who's listening, they're getting a call, they're forgetting to write down their students' return dates, so then they have to call back. And it's not like we don't want the calls. The problem is we don't have the resources. So if everyone could, just be ready with the dates, the return dates, so that they know. And then we also need to look at, we are answering the phone until 7 o'clock at night. So sometimes contact tracing could be happening until 10 o'clock at night. So I have nurses and administrators and contact tracers, whoever we can get to help, working from 7:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning until about 10:30 at night. We can't continue that. We have posted, you may have seen, for contact tracers to see if we could train anyone. We've posted for LPNs, RNs. They don't exist. They just don't. The medical field is, as Lindsay could tell you, burnt out, and they don't exist. So we're doing our best. We could have people help with contact tracing, but in order to be a contact tracer, you have to really be willing to pretty much sacrifice your schedule, your life, for not all that much money. So it's not that the skill is so complicated, because you have a script and you have everything in front of you, but we're saying we may call you at 6 o'clock in the morning. We may call you on a Sunday. We may call you in the middle of dinner. I'm used to that. I've accepted that as a responsibility, and I'm compensated for it, but there are people, and I don't blame them, who are just not interested or willing. So we are doing our best, but we may need to revise some of the way that we're doing things, and we may have to stop and say at 5 o'clock, the day ends, the phone, you leave a message on our COVID hotline, and really just letting that has to truly be used for positive COVID cases, and then all other questions have to wait until the following morning, and the school nurse has to be contacted. This around the clock is burning everyone out, and I could see the effect that it's having on everyone. We've been working very closely with outside people. Everyone is really responsible for their own entity, and we really need to stick to that. It's become too much of the school's responsibility and too much of the school's making the contacts, and we're going to start breaking that relationship. Not that it's not going to happen, but it really has to be up to the coaches and the outside activities, whatever students are doing, that they're contacting families, and they have their own policies, and they're working with Mr. Nesci, and it's not all falling on the school. We really can't do that any longer. So you'll be looking at some revisions in that. We talk a lot about how we can streamline communication process. It's just an incredibly lengthy process to do. And when you're always worried about a student or anybody's health, you do take it very seriously. So it takes time, and I think we've been doing a great job. However, right now it's a different ball game than where we were last year. You know, it was you were quarantined for 10 days, and then that was your return date. It's you're quarantined, you could test on day 5. If you test positive, negative on day 5, day 8 you can return. If it's an athletic event, it's a whole different story. And keeping track, and then if you can come back to school, but you can't go through to athletics. So between Mrs. Maher and our nursing staff and everyone else, and our administrative assistants, our principals, our everyone has been phenomenal. But this has been a 7-day-a-week job, and I need to find some balance. Unfortunately, I can't just say we're not going to do it because we are bound by the health department, the local health department, DPH, and what their decisions are.
So I know at our last meeting, Jillian presented the differences for if you're on a sport and how you're going to get treated for quarantining. Are they providing why they're coming up with this varying guidance? Are they giving you do they have substantial reasoning for it that's backed by data that supports all of this? Because it's overwhelming.
And frustrating.
It's frustrating. It's a lot. It's hard. It's a lot.
And who is the they?
Yes,
So
exactly.
So today,
Is it DPH,
DPH and the State Department of Education work closely. So the respectfully heated discussion today is exactly what you're saying, Catherine, is that there's so much data coming in so quickly. How quickly are we looking at the research and then making decisions? And for example, there was research that was done on music, right? The music program, and singing and being within a certain, so we still are using that addendum. However, there's been more recent research on that, but they haven't changed the addendum. We keep asking, when are we getting that change? It's been a month. Right now, this morning, when we asked, it's on its way. Hopefully it'll be out by Thursday, but we've heard that before, and they just don't have the resources either. So the response that we get, and I'm going to give it to you, and it is a canned response, and I get it every single day, especially when I contact. I have no shame in emailing DPH 2 to 3 times a week with questions, and they're great with getting back. Is we have to look at the risk and the benefits. So we know that and what they're saying right now is that there's enough data out there that sports, athletics in general, that there's a greater risk that you will contract COVID. So, and it could possibly happen anytime between 48 hours and 2 weeks. So that's why we monitor for symptoms, and they're allowing some of this testing in and testing out, but there's no perfect answer. So when we ask these questions, they don't have a perfect answer. I know one thing that they're doing some research on from Massachusetts is they're doing the test out method. So you can come in, you could test every day, and you could come to school. So while you're testing, so it's like you're testing 5 or 6 days in a row. That would take resources. Who's giving, like we're talking about testing kindergartners with nose swabs and everything else. These are some of the things that they're talking about versus everyone is too afraid, I believe, is to say, let's see what happens if we don't wear our masks during the school day, because we have adults, we have medically fragile students, we have medically fragile adults, and they're not making that decision, and they're giving us what I just told you. The research that they have, and it may not be the most updated, is what they have. There's a greater spread in sports. That's why they've extended, they've made that longer. They see less spread in the classroom with the 3 feet. As long as the adult is keeping the 6 feet. Have we seen some their reasoning is that we, as adults, could get sicker, right? There's a great chance of us getting sicker and more sick, whatever the word. I can't even speak lately. I'm so tired. So that's their reasoning. 90% of it, we've been getting the same answers over and over again. There's no new information. We're pushing for the same thing that everybody's asking for. More research, another update. Because we can't deny that in Cromwell right now, we have a lot of kids who have COVID. Thank goodness. Some kids are getting sick. Some have no symptoms at all. Some have, it's like getting the flu. And thank goodness they come back and they're okay. But none of that research is updated to date as far as what DPH considers good enough to make them go change and loosen up a little bit. And that's all I can tell you, because that's what I hear every single day, including in person today. But it's not that the superintendents are not pushing back. It's not that we're not asking. It's not that we're doing all of that ad nauseum. But everything I share with you is what I learn.
Was that it, or was there?
No. So the other thing I just wanted to update you, we talked about our bus drivers and our shortages for busing. It's not just drivers. We have shortages with food as well. You're going to see a little bit of a change with students' lunch menus. We're going to do the best we can, and breakfast menus, meal plan. However, we have been okay in Cromwell to date. Sandra's amazing. She runs our food services program. She's our coordinator. We are getting orders a little bit late. We've had to make some minor changes. A lot of districts have had to make major changes, but we're supposed to be seeing a big food shortage, so we have to make adjustments to the menu. And the bus drivers, thank goodness, we've been okay. We come close quite often with athletics, where we're holding our breath in certain situations, but then they usually pull through. So we're doing okay in that aspect, where a lot of districts are struggling. The good thing is that DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Education, DMIS, Department of Mental Health, all of these organizations or departments are working much more closely together to help background checks. Those could take forever. Everyone is really working to make sure that we have the people in place so that we can continue to run school. It's not perfect, but knock on wood, Cromwell's doing way better than a lot of districts. So I'm very grateful for that. So as far as COVID and quarantining, that's all that I have. But I would like to share, I would like the administrators one at a time to come up, because we've been asked a lot about how are we providing instruction. We are not, so when students are quarantining, we are a district, along with many, many others, who are providing assignments through Google Classroom. The students all know how to get onto their Google Classroom. They'll tell you how to get onto their assignments. And if a student is struggling, a parent notices a student is struggling, the teacher notices that the student is struggling with assignments and such, we do have tutors or interventionists, depending at what level, available to support the students throughout the day. And that doesn't have to necessarily happen if you don't need the support, but the support is there. The interventionists are going to start reaching out to families, besides getting a letter from the principal saying how to access your Google, you've been quarantined, how to access your Google. We will take it a step further and have the interventionists reach out to the students who are quarantined. Some people have said that they find it necessary. I have to tell you that I've gotten very few complaints, but I've gotten some, and it is a resource that we have, but we're paying for it. So if you feel that it's money well spent at this point, I feel like it's money well spent just to please people, but I don't know if it's necessarily needed, and we don't have funds to do things that we don't need. So I always said I would be honest with you. That's why I'm having the administrators come up to you, because they can tell you how many complaints they've gotten from people, and telling you how it's working in their school, and then some of the changes that we're going to make. But in making those changes, it's going to be a little bit more costly to the district. So I'll start with Mr. Kuckel, who got up, so I figured he needed a little leg stretching, and he can let you know what happens when you are quarantined at the high school.
Okay, yeah, so for Cromwell High School, each time, once we've identified your student as a close contact, we essentially send the following home. So we have a mental health support menu that we do send home to folks that are in quarantine. That was created by Mrs. Madison, our school social worker, in collaboration with our school psychologist and counseling department. Again, just with that isolation, it's always helpful to have some tips. So we do send that home directly to families as an attachment. And then we also send them the specifics. They essentially can interact with their teachers via Google Classroom. Classroom teachers will post their assignments daily. At the high school level, we also have the ability, if they want to meet with their teacher after school virtually, that can be arranged. And they also have the ability to join a academic support center each period of the day, where they can ask questions of peer tutors. We have a peer tutoring program that we're excited about that we started up this year. It's been a goal of ours for many years, and the pandemic just sped that up for us. And then they also have after-school virtual tutoring support Tuesday through Thursday from 2:45 to 3:45 p.m. And so what happens is we send home this as well directly to families. And this actually has the links in it. So it has the Peer Tutoring Support Center link in it. It has our after-school tutoring support link as well. And then we just remind them as well they have their school counselors, because we have a whole system on our end that we enact when a student does go into quarantine, where our school counselors work very closely with the teachers and the family as needed to make sure they stay on track moving forward. So that's at the high school level. How we do that, contact tracing does take us some time, so tonight's a good example where families might have just received this information in the last hour or so, based on how long contact tracing takes, because we want to make sure we send it out to everyone and send it out accurately. On my end, we haven't, we've been fortunate at the high school, where we've only had, I believe, a total of 3 cases that have impacted us in this way. And with each of the circumstances, we have not had anyone, reach out directly to me about any concerns with that. But again, the high school is a different beast. You have so many different classes that you take. So we do encourage folks in quarantine to utilize all of these different methods. Either getting in touch with their teacher directly. Teachers reach out on Classroom as well, because they know they're in a difficult spot, and they're always working with our students to get them through and get them back, so they don't feel like they missed a lot. So that's at the high school.
So I encourage you to share, obviously, the knowledge. And if parents aren't getting a letter, because it goes to the students and in high school, the students and the families, please, I encourage you to call the school immediately, because there may be a glitch in something. Also, the mental health support is always there. And what I really want to stress to everyone, because we're all in panic mode, right? Everyone's constantly panicking. When kids have gotten sick in the past, and they may have been out for 5 days or 10 days, and they've gotten the flu or surgery or whatever, teachers, when kids come back, they just don't let kids go. When they come back, they do their best to catch the students up and to help them and provide. So if they're not getting that direct instruction right there at that moment while their classmates are getting it, they're going to be pulled. They're going to be offered tutoring after school. They're going to be offered all the supports to get them back on track. And I think that's something that because we want to act so immediately, and we're all very stressed out, and I understand why, the students will get the support when they come back. They're coming back to class, and it could be within a few days. It could be 10 days. But the teachers are there to support them as much as they need, and that's at every level. So let's share that information with people and help them understand whatever they need, just like as if, if they were sick at any other time, if it was COVID or, like I said, the flu, the chicken pox, whatever it should be, that we don't just say, well, you weren't here for 10 days and too bad. That's not what we do. So if any questions for Mr. Kuckel or me about the high school or...
Got a question from Lou?
General question. You mentioned the flu. Has there been any reports to the flu within Cromwell and his students? And the second part of that question is there has been some reports of false positives and negatives with the PCR test for COVID. Do we know of any reports of false negatives or positives?
Last year, yes. This year, no. And I think part of the reason why is the molecular test. A lot of people are getting the molecular. It's a lot more reliable, and they're offering it more. It's still nasal, some are spit, but it's just what they're looking for. We believe, as we have those conversations, that's why. And then the flu, not that I know of. I don't know if any principal. I feel badly. Poor Jillian couldn't be here, but not that I know of. I haven't heard anything, and usually we'd find out. But don't mark my words. And if I find out tomorrow, I'll let you know. Okay. Okay, Ms. Cochiola?
Good evening, everyone. Just to bring light to the middle school process. Can you hear me? Okay. To the middle school process. We talked about this whole process at the opening of school at our opening faculty meeting, and staff were certainly aware that we were going to have students who were possibly going to have to quarantine. So we did talk about this, and we explained how we were having staff to stay after school to be able to meet with students virtually in case of any questions. So we did hire 2 staff members, and they're available Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday via Google Meet for the kids. Also, classroom teachers were also available to help with students for after school. I know a couple of our math teachers have spent some time after school with our students via Google Meet just to go over any questions and so forth. So I know that because they keep checking in. Also, when students return, our staff has been very flexible with helping kids, to catch up and get any, questions answered and so on and so forth with their work. And they also have the opportunity to work with their students during our focus period. So that's also been very helpful, where we've had students meet with teachers to catch up. Also, the minute we find out which students are quarantined, we have a letter that goes home via Power School, gives all the information on, the teachers, their Google Classrooms, their Google Meet codes, and also, we explain to students, please communicate with your classroom teachers as well. So we close the loop, and these letters go home to the individual students. It's not sent out, like in mass. It's sent to the individual families. So far, so good. I haven't heard any complaints or any concerns from parents to date, so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and figure that no news is good news. So we definitely have that process in place. Yes.
Questions.
Sure.
One, shouldn't the students already have all their Google Meet information from being in the classroom to begin with?
They do. They have it in their own particular content classrooms.
Right.
This is a separate Google Classroom that we wanted to make for the kids. So it's kind of their homework tutoring teacher. So it's a separate venue altogether. So the kids know they try and meet with their teachers, or they have questions through their own Google Classrooms, and anything that's really tough for them, now they have the opportunity to meet with this teacher after school via Google Meet to go over any questions or any assignments. And they also have had the opportunity to meet with some of their classroom teachers after school too when they were available.
Most of the classroom teachers offer after school or sometimes even
Mhm.
before school hours. Is it necessary to have these additional tutors after school?
I do, just for extra support. We want to make sure our students don't get nervous, don't get upset. I mean, it's tough enough for when a kid gets that, I have to quarantine. I mean, that's enough. So we just want to make sure we give everybody multiple opportunities to get questions answered. Maybe the teacher's not available, so now at least they know Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, these two folks are available to answer any questions. It's kind of an insurance policy.
I didn't ask this of Mr. Cockle when he was up here, but it goes for the middle school. Are they expected to take tests while they're in quarantine?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, unless some do some classroom online tests, but I don't think so. Not to date, as I've been shared. That would be something that would be made up when they come back. Okay.
Ms.
Thank you.
Gociola.
Thank you.
Quickly, Mr. Butwill and Ms. Tuno, and then I'll quickly talk about the passive live stream and why we're not doing it. And I'm not saying we're not doing it forever. We're just not doing it now. And I'll tell you why I don't theoretically and philosophically believe in it, but we don't know what could happen with this pandemic, and we may have to turn to that. So, Mr. Butwill.
Hi, everyone. So at the elementary level, I think the process is a bit simpler because the students really just have to deal with their classroom teacher. There's no other teacher since they're self-contained. So when a student is quarantined, when we contact home, when we speak with the parent, we tell them that assignments will be in the teacher's Google Classroom, and then as part of that process, when the teacher is notified, we let them know, which students are going to be quarantined and to please load that information into the Google Classroom. So to date, knowing that the teachers are sort of the go-to person for each of their students, they have the best relationship with their students. They know the assignments. So when we have offered, I've instructed teachers to please, let us know if you see students who are not completing assignments. They seem lost. They need help. And we will use interventionists as a liaison to make sure that see if students need help or need any kind of support. So to date, we haven't used that. We haven't needed that support from interventionists. I haven't heard from any parents who have said their child seems lost or doesn't seem to know what to do. And I know the teachers are doing an amazing job communicating with their individual students, on a day-to-day basis and making sure that the assignments are in there and they're answering any questions that the students have.
Mr. Hall. Great. Okay, and then Ms. Tuno.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's always hard to go last because everyone has said it all. But it's ditto the same as Woodside. When we do a contact tracing and students have to be in quarantine, we call them all. Mrs. Hanson does it, or whoever else is on the team, as well as the administration, speak right to the parents. We also email them, letting them know that the Google Classroom will have work for them. We also contact the teacher, and the teachers have been great. We contact them at, it could be on the weekend, it could be during the week, but we email them, just letting them know the dates of the quarantine duration for the students that are going to be out in their classes. Going forward, we will utilize our interventionists to help support the students. We have not had any complaints or concerns about the work being put on Google Classrooms, but going forward, we will utilize them. If we find that students are struggling or need support with internet or just struggling with the whole virtual, the internet piece, we do seek out our social worker and our school psychologists, and they've been great to help support that way in talking with parents. Any questions?
Any questions? So what I'd like to explain is at the secondary level, obviously, because just of the nature, the tutors are available. The students are invited to attend, get support. There's so many different opportunities. At the elementary level, when I was saying earlier, the teachers are doing a lot through Google Classroom, Google Chat. The interventionists are there as a hold so that they can reach out to students if needed. However, we could, and what Mr. Butwill and Ms. Tuno just said as we had our conversation this morning, I could have the interventionists, we could have the interventionists call every student on family every time someone gets quarantined and make that additional phone call and ask them if they like to meet through Zoom and and have that conversation. But just remember, now we're paying an interventionist to make that connection with a parent, and that's something that we don't feel like we need to do unless the child is struggling. So we could do it. I think we're doing a really good job. You heard from the principals themselves. I think that no matter what, and I commiserate with our families and our parents. It's hard. It's hard to have a child quarantining, and you have to go to work, and you have to figure it out. But a lot of parents have voiced that they don't want their children to have to get online and do because their child is with someone that can't actually help them do that. So that's one reason why we chose this. The second thing is the passive live stream. I don't believe in it. It actually hurts. I believe it harms what we're trying to do, and that's get back to normal. So students shouldn't be sitting at their seats every second of every day and not meeting with a smaller group of ability. That's time to start pulling small groups and keeping the social distancing. If the teacher is connected to something, not only is the student who's passively listening, the teacher's going to be much more reluctant to provide that individualized instruction to the student that he or she may be working or they may be working with. And another thing is that families and other students now are listening to other students' individualized instruction. And I don't feel for a passive live stream that we would get anything out of it. It's just to make people feel that teachers are doing their job, and that's not what we want. It's about supporting kids and getting kids what they need, and we think we're doing a really good job with the way we're doing it. And I'm not saying that passive live stream might happen in the future, because I don't know what could happen with this pandemic. We can get another variant. We don't know what could happen. But I feel that it's more detrimental and ineffective to have the passive listening, which is why myself and Dr. McLean and the principals agree. If you have any questions further clarifying the situation with me or with Dr. McLean, who are instructional specialists, we'd be more than happy to answer them. But we want to make be very conscientious and thoughtful about our decisions. It's not about who's working, who's not working. It's actually inequitable for when the students are in the classroom to do passive. And it's not fair to the teacher either, because the teacher can't provide the individualized instruction and feel comfortable with moving around, because now the entire family at home knows what the other students are receiving. So that's why Cromwell, along with probably 75% of the districts, are doing it similar to us. And there are 25%, I'd say, out there who are doing passive. That's not best practice. So I would like to continue to do it, although we have a few people who are not happy, but this is better for our kids. And our kids are here, so how's it working? Is it going okay? Do you feel that if you were home, I really would like to know, and we've asked, and you were able to listen to the teacher, but they're working with other kids, and it's not necessarily what you're working on, would that be helpful to you, or what you? So go ahead and speak, because then you can't do your assignments because you need to listen to the teacher.
I know from last year, for me at least, and like many other students, it was really hard to focus at home, and when teachers were working with other 10 students, they would sometimes forget that we were online. So overall, I feel like how we are doing it now is the best for me as a learner.
Great. Thanks, Stephan. I appreciate it. And I didn't pay her to say anything. But that's what we feel as well. Olivia, do you feel?
I agree with what Devin said. It's more practical this way.
Okay. How about Charlie and Jillian? How are you feeling? You agree? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's why we're here. We want to do what's best for kids, and we feel that that's what's best for kids right now. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, Selena, sorry. Please.
Just, are we going to be evaluating or reevaluating? I don't know what the cost is associated with the daytime tutoring, but if that's not being utilized, is that something at some point we'll look into whether we should continue?
So that's always, what is it, the $64,000 question? I forget. It's the ESL in me, is it? Are we doing this and right? So what are we getting out of it, and what are our students getting out of it? So we will reach out to families. We will have pre-K through 5 interventionists reach out to families for a few weeks, and we actually will ask those questions to the families. Is this helpful to you, or is it not helpful to you? We need to have those conversations, and the interventionists will, because a lot of it was different last year. Our families were home, right? Some of our parents were home with our kids. That's not happening. Parents have to go to work, so they're leaving their children somewhere else. And it may be with a grandparent. And God knows my mom would have a really hard time with getting my nieces or nephews on Google Classroom. Or remote learning. So we have to have constant conversations and see if it's working or not working. Do we really need it? And be thoughtful about it. But I think for the next couple weeks, we did speak, we spoke today, and Mr. Tuno and Mr. Butwell will have the interventionists reach out to the families that one extra step, and to see if we get any takers. And some parents may come right out and tell us, we're good, let us continue this way, or they may say, yes, we definitely want more tutoring, which is available, but now they have an extra opportunity to say yes or no through a phone call, a personal
Sorry, I think
phone
I was more referring to, I should have been clear, at the high school and middle school, the daytime tutoring that you click a link and you can get to, the student can go to on their own, not necessarily an interventionist reaching out to them. That's something different, right?
So the tutoring in the afternoon, yes.
Not
but
the afternoon.
That is not
During the
afternoon.
day.
Oh, those are kids that help. Peer tutoring.
Our students?
Yeah. Mr. Cockle can explain to you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we have honor society students in need of community service hours and whatnot that we've set up. So it's been quiet right now because we just, like I said, been very fortunate at the high school. But that would be that's free of cost.
Okay.
During the day.
I just did have a little bit of a technical difficulty personally, because the form needed to be unlocked, and then you can't forward to, like, I couldn't forward to my son's email because it gets kicked back. So I don't know how it's shared normally, but if
Yeah.
there's a different way to fix that problem.
We could just email them directly through their classroom pages as well.
Right.
It's the same,
And,
yeah.
and most students are back so quickly that it's probably not needed anyway. There's a very small percentage
That
of
is
kids
true,
that
yeah.
have-
No, our quarantine window is very short now,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Any other questions? Jen, please.
Can I just ask a follow-up from last time, or it might have been the last meeting or the meeting before, we had asked that you send out the letter just having students send in their vaccination cards, or, recommending they do. And I'm just wondering what % we're at now with students vaccinated at the high school.
It didn't go all that well. We did not get a huge response. We got more, but what's really happening is when the student is about to be quarantined, and then I had asked again, and then I had asked the principals to put it in their newsletter, it would be so much quicker and so much more helpful. But I think people, if they don't need to share that, they're reluctant to about their child. I could send those letters home until I'm blue in the face, but there was a little response, but not much.
Catherine? Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Jen.
You know what, I don't, Jill, I'm sure Jillian knows it by heart, but I don't right now, off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Didn't the governor pass state legislation last month that allows our public health coordinator and school nurses to access student records for vaccinations?
Yep, so there's something called CT Wiz. So there is something out there that says the nurses or the public can look to see if students have been vaccinated. And we could do that at any time. The problem with that is having the time to actually have somebody download it and then print it, and then put it in the student's medical record. So it's just easier when the parent just sends it in and we put it in the medical record. We also want parents to be upfront and be able to share that information with us instead of us saying, and we have had to do it, where some to help parents too, but it's not positive feedback. Parents don't love that we have access to that. Yeah, they don't love it. So we try to do it the right way, right? Yeah. And if we can't get a hold of a parent, it's happened a couple times where a kid has said, I promise you I'm vaccinated, I don't have my card, had a game, didn't want to miss it. Have we gone in to check once or twice when needed? Yes. but we don't go in regularly. We'd rather have that communication coming from our parents. But they do have legislatively have the right to. We just want to do the right thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Selena.
One more really quick question, not about that topic, but you mentioned the food shortage, and I know lunches are still free, and I'm wondering, is there an end to that in sight? Because could that help if they weren't free? Of course, I want children to eat, but not if it's to the detriment of the kids that really need it.
So that's interesting. The federal government, it's a federal grant to all districts in the state of Connecticut, and it could be nationwide, don't mark my word. And we actually, we benefit because we get a higher reimbursement rate when students are accepting the meals. So the more kids that take the meals, the district benefits because it's reimbursable. However, there has been no talk about stopping that, and would that help? That hasn't even come up. And Ann, I just want to double check with Ann. Am I wrong in saying that that hasn't even been, okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. All right, next, action approval of minutes from the September 14th, 2021 regular meeting. It's reference C in your packet. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Lori. Is there a second? Second by Jen. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Lou, Lindsay, and Mr. Flanders. Otherwise, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, next, approval of the minutes from the September 14th, 2021 executive session. Reference D in your packet. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Jen. Is there a second? Second by Dipti. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Abstentions from Lou and Lindsay. Otherwise, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, next, firewall security and unexpected expenses. Dr. Macri.
I asked Mr. Latwinzik to just come and speak to you about things in our buildings that are falling apart unexpectedly. And then you saw the firewall big $100,000 ticket that we were not expecting. We did have serious technology issues a couple weeks ago. Charlie says yes. Yes, they were awful for everyone, adults, children, all alike. So we had to make some significant and quick changes to stop that from happening. So Mr. Latwinzik will explain that to you, and then a few other projects that have been very costly that we can't ignore.
Yeah, good evening. So let's go right to the firewall. The firewall was slated to be replaced next year. It was in our budget, ready to go. And things happened during the summer, plus the onset of COVID, expanding the one-to-one all the way down to pre-K, which really affected the performance of the unit. It wasn't meant to handle this many devices, so we were planning on upgrading it already. But other issues that came up with some situations with some external forces that affected our firewall basically rendered it pretty useless, so we had to borrow one from one of our vendors, and we tried out. This one's working out really well. It's an upgraded model. It's a little bit, it's a lot more robust than what we would be normally putting in here, but I think that's something we're gonna have to standardize too because of how much we do depend on technology in the district now. So unfortunately, it's very expensive. We were slating about that same money for next year. Unfortunately, at the timing of this, we won't be able to get any reimbursement from E-rate because we wouldn't be able to put it until next year, and I don't think we can wait. I can't unlimited, I can't borrow the device I'm using right now till that time. It'd be unfair to them. Plus, I got it directly from the manufacturer, so we were lucky to leverage that. They saw our need, and they were nice enough to give us a hand. Other things, I think this summer was another challenging thing. As you know, we're renovating the culinary arts here at the high school. Just prior to that, the air handling unit above that area of the building failed. I told you about it like end of last year, just around this time, just before school let out. Got hit by lightning. We're not sure what happened to it. It's a very expensive unit. Luckily, we had some unexpended funds we were able to apply to that, and that's being addressed right now. It should be, I think the first week in November, it should be put in place, so we're cutting it close, because it's also a heating unit. And just last week, one of the boilers at Woodside has sprung a leak. It's one of the middle sections, so we're not sure. We're hopefully going to get that covered by insurance, but we're not sure yet. So that could be another costly expense. And going into heating season, it's not like we can ignore it. That's all I have right now, hopefully. Otherwise Ann's coming after me.
Exactly. We need a new building. We're not just telling you this for proof, but we need a new building. Thank you. If anyone else.
Catherine, did you have any questions going back to our earlier discussion on the firewall?
So the firewall you mentioned was slated to be replaced for next year, and we would have some reimbursed expenses from it?
Correct. This is the way E-rate works. You apply for it in the fall, and you get approved sometime during the winter months, and you get your reimbursement for the next fiscal year. But since we're doing it this fiscal year, it's not going to. I've made it so it's about probably be a little cheaper than I would have expended, but it's going to be more than what it would have been if I got my reimbursement.
Okay, and was it, and this is actually for Dr. Macri, was it a breach of our firewall that we had?
No, it was a denial of service.
What does that mean?
I mean that basically people are trying to come in from the outside, never got in, but made it so we couldn't get outside either. So basically it shut down the services.
Okay. So it was someone who was trying to access our firewall?
No, they were just trying to be malicious. There's basically a way of just basically banging on the wall till it just can't respond to anybody's responses.
Okay.
All set, Catherine? Selena?
I'm sorry, did you say that the unit, I think it was at the high school, the AC unit, you had mentioned it might be covered by insurance at our last meeting?
No, that's, yeah, and it wasn't.
It wasn't, okay.
They deemed it was too old to be covered.
Okay.
Wear and tear.
Sorry, one other follow-up question I forgot. The renovation here at the high school for the culinary room, what is the status of that?
We're moving forward. It's still looking like everything's on time. We're hoping that it's going to be operational by January.
Okay.
But there's still everything's shipping, but we're not sure of all the delivery dates.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Okay, next, school committee update regarding CMS. Dr. Macri?
Okay. So we did decide as a facilities committee that we would have meetings more often. Our next meeting is October 26th. CSG is invited to the meeting. Basically, as I'm learning more about the charter and what we need to do next so that we could try to move this project forward, this is what has to happen next. And it happened the other day. I can't remember, maybe Thursday, last Thursday. I emailed, or Friday, Mayor Fienza and asked him if we could be, as the Board of Education, and I hope everyone attends the meeting because it's a community project, but myself and the school team and the board chair will be presenting an overview and a scope of the project. So why CMS, really? Why not CMS? And we're not saying that why ECS, not ECS. We're not saying that ECS doesn't need it, because it does. Just at the last couple of years, the need has just grown so much more for CMS. So we're going to talk about the overview. We'll talk about the logistical reasons, the operational things, the problems that we're having that you're hearing, but then the programmatic things that we're very, 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 very behind. The nice thing is that David Geary used our building to film a movie. And the reason why they wanted to use it so badly is because they had a flashback to the 80s scene, and our middle school was perfect for it. So, so that's the good news. The middle school will be in an 80s flashback because it's so perfect for it. So we were laughing about that. But then we need to be on the agenda for that, the town council agenda. and then the Board of Finance after the Town Council. After the overview that's prepared and we share all that information and answer all the questions, then I will ask for 2 action items. And one action item is for an appropriation for us to hire an architect to look at 2 different concepts. So that's either building new or renovating. Very approximate numbers, but without an architect, it's hard to really tell, although our owner's rep is doing a good job with building specs and talking to everybody under the sun to try and get some information before it moves on to the next piece, which is the community piece. So that will be an ask. And the second ask will then be for the town council to put together a building committee by the end of December so that we could start meeting with the building committee in January. By then, the ed specs will be shown to the Board of Education. You'll have an idea of what's going on as far as what would it look like and what would it cost for new or renovated. And then it really becomes a community project, and we turn it over to the town. However, the instructional people, the specialists, will make high recommendations of how we need to move forward programmatically. But making decisions on how I see it as, if this, we can make this an incredible opportunity for the community to use a building, either a brand new or a renovated building, so that as an extra space to have large events. Schools are different. We're way outdated. We want to be able to make it a hub for the community. So the building committee comes together, and then the building committee will start the process. And if all goes well, and if we stay on this, we'll have the building committee will make and have a meeting, and the building committee will request a meeting with the town council. Town council will either vote to appropriate the money for the project or go to referendum, which is more likely. That would have to happen in the first week of May. And then by the end of June, we will apply for the grant with the State Department of Education. And we then will find out December of 2022 if we were selected as a building project and that if we'll be reimbursed. Right now, reimbursable rates, I don't know exactly, about 39. I don't even want to misspeak. So that'll be brought forward, all of this information with our owner's rep. But the next steps are for us, hopefully, we hope, we don't know, we're getting a new town council, we're getting a new Board of Finance, so to make the presentation in October would be a moot point. I did ask to be on the November 10th agenda for the town council if there is a meeting, and I asked to be on the November 18th agenda for the Board of Finance if that happens, and we'll present all of what I just told you. And I also asked if those were canceled for some reason, if we could be on the December. But that is really cutting the timeline, but I think we can do it by the end of this year if everyone is in agreement. So that's where we're at as far as an update. That's just all hypothetical, and it's as if everything goes as planned, and we know that things just don't always go as planned.
Just a note on the November 10th town council meeting, the first Board of Ed meeting after the election will be November 9th. So a new chair would only get appointed or elected on the 9th. So just for scheduling purposes for the Board of Ed.
That means you all better be ready to do the presentation.
Yes, we don't know who's going to be there.
Yeah,
so.
we will, and obviously it's important for all of us, and even if you're not on the board any longer, it would be great. You've been with us to support the project. It's something that is greatly needed and greatly deserved by our students. They deserve a new school, something really to be proud of, and we really want to give it to them.
Question from Lori.
I'm just wondering, when you're thinking about the new middle school, are you thinking for central office? Would it still be part of, are you planning on separating that, or what are your thoughts about that?
So that has to kind of be a discussion as part of the building committee. My personal thoughts are, I'm selfish and I love seeing the kids. We all need to. I think that keeps us grounded. I want to be in the building with our kids. I want central office to be connected. I think it's really important for everyone. You see that I worked in 2 environments where central office is completely disconnected, and you lose sight sometimes. The best thing of when we're having, I just say, okay, I need to go see kids, and I walk through the door and I go see them, and it makes everything, puts everything in perspective. Selfishly, if it's more costly to do something else, the building committee will have that discussion, but right now, my hope is that we get to stay together.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, next. Action approval of updated school calendar for the 2021-2022 school year, reference E in your packet. Dr. Macri?
Yes, so very quickly, if you look at the top right-hand corner under 2022, it talks about CMS, CHS marking period. And we noticed, we noticed more recently that they were off. There was by periods. There wasn't enough day in one period. So really all we did was make it so that it's more, so that it's equally dispersed throughout the year. And then when we did the calendar for next year, we made sure we looked at that so that we don't do that again. That's the only change. The marking periods are a little different, and it really affects CMS. Because I believe CHS was okay to begin with. It's really, and it's because it's credit bearing, so we had to make those changes for the middle school. So we're on the same plan for now. So that's the only change. Nothing else has changed in the calendar.
It's motion by John. Is there a second? Second by Catherine. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Oh, question?
Approving the 21-22.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
Any comments or questions? Not right
Nope.
now. No, that's the next. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, next. Review and possible action of the school calendar for the 2022-2023 school year.
So-
Dr. Macri?
Sure. So this is our first shot at putting together the calendar and obviously getting input from the board. We kind of follow the same process that we follow every year. We don't have to vote today. We can talk about it. If you decide that you like it this way, that's fine too. But we just were following suit from years past.
2 comments.
Catherine, please.
First is if we can rename our half days versus the 1 hour early dismissal days to say that, you know, instead of calling our, what are truly half days early dismissal, if we could say early half dismissal days or something else to make it a little more.
1 hour dismissal day, like 1 hour
Versus
earlier.
we have a 1 hour early
Yeah.
day and then we have other days where they get out
Yep, hear you.
significantly earlier.
Yep, we can do that.
My other one is, I think this is the first school year since my kids have been in school and I have a junior in high school where we started the school year with 5 full days of school, and it was hellacious. From across the board, the parents that I talked to, the students, even teachers were exhausted by the end of the first week. I strongly recommend we reconsider putting our students and staff in for a full week, that last week of August, because it was exhausting.
I will do whatever you want to do. I heard the same thing. We remember we debated back and forth last year because it was just so early and so late. Do we start earlier? Do we start later? We didn't really know what to do because we were nervous about the pandemic. If you would like to change it, you have the final say. You tell me. And
Well, I think initially we thought our kids will be so happy, like everybody would
Yeah,
be so
be happy to be back to school.
to be back to school, that this will be great, and it wasn't the case.
Yeah, we were all mentally drained.
Everybody was like walking zombies by Friday afternoon.
It
so.
is hard to get back into the swing of things. Whatever you suggest, do.
So Selena, I'm sorry, Selena, did you have a comment on
Make
that?
sure I
So
take
do
a note.
Selena, Lori, Lindsay.
I was just agreeing with Catherine, especially for the little ones, like kindergarten. 1 whole week was sad. And then I just wondered, does that mean that we wouldn't be able to graduate on a Friday? Is that why we did that in the first place, was so that we could have the last day of school be on a Friday.
It worked out beautifully, but that wasn't why. It just
Okay.
happened to work out, which was really nice. We do have legislation that says that we can vote on graduation date. Right, but you're taking a. That's why I always encourage you guys to, for everyone to wait, because we don't know what the weather is going to be like, and we really have no idea. It just landed very nicely this year. If we move it, it'll change.
What if we put in, and actually we have 4 students here that can give us input if they'd like, if we did some more half days for that first week as opposed to full days of school, or if there's some way that we can change it up. I don't know. Do you guys have any input or any comments on
Don't
this?
ask the students if they want a half day.
Well, I mean, was it difficult to come back for 5 full days of school for your first week?
Well, for mainly all the time I've been going to the Cromwell School District, school days usually started on a Wednesday, and don't forget we also had that Monday off the next week, so it's slowly getting into the swing of things instead of like one day Timmering, bam, you're like, okay, gotta go to Miss So-and-so's class for math, and yeah, so it's just not what we're really used to.
Yeah, I agree. It was like it was okay to transition, but at the end of the week, everyone was tired, and we do have that routine of like going in on Wednesday. And I mean, a half days would sound good, but at the end of the day, the teachers will assign the same amount of work, and it just, a Wednesday does sound great, but I do like the Friday graduation.
It's always looking at ending earlier and we had a really nice long summer, and I think everybody really needed it. But if we want to move it back to say, we have to really think about this.
Well, we don't have to vote
No.
on it if you want to.
No,
so
no,
if
no.
you want to look at it.
Do you want me to come back with a second version of
Yeah.
starting on, so students.
31st?
Teachers, and then the students starting, so the teachers would starting teachers 29.
So while you're doing that, Lori?
Yeah, so, and I brought this up last year. Since my son's been coming to school, we always started on that Wednesday and eased into it, where they did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days. Then the following week was Labor Day, and they had 4, then 5. So they gradually, so if you did that, if you started on the 31st, then they'd have 3, and then it's Labor Day weekend, so then they'd have 4, and then it'd be like a gradual. The only thing that would get messed up was your Friday graduation, but like we said, you don't know. That's not even a guarantee anyway. What are the chances you're going to be no snow days? And I also just want to thank Catherine for making me not the only parent to, I've been emailing Mr. Kuckle, like, the early release and early dismissal, like, it's just so confusing, like, which one's which, and so, and I had asked him, can't we change early dismissal to half days? And he had said something about it was connected to the district handbook. Am I right? Yeah. So, but I'm not confused easily, and I was like, okay, I don't I had it all written down. I was emailing him. I'm like, I can't be the only parent that's struggling with this.
It also didn't match up with what some of the stuff
No,
listed in Power School was,
that's
so
right.
that was also
It didn't.
confusing for people.
Yeah. So,
Lindsay.
so
Just-
rename it.
So just one question for me on the Wednesday early release days. I know when we approved that last year, it was sort of a, let's see how it works out and then revisit it. So I guess the question is, how is it working out?
Excellent. So like we talked about earlier, we have a lot of curricular work, a lot of professional development. That hasn't lessened. The beginning of the meeting before it started, I was talking about there were 300 educational acts brought to the legislative branch this year. So I'd say about 100 of them went through, which has more SEL training. Teacher evaluation is changing. The amount of training that is expected for teachers to do, it has increased, not decreased. So this has been invaluable time, plus the curriculum work that we needed to do. And when we talk about curriculum work, people say, well, we have curriculum specialists or supervisors or coaches. Unless the teacher is fully involved in the planning and the process, it just becomes another piece of paper. The teachers have the expertise. They work with the kids all day long. They bring a great level of knowledge to the team. So that provides time for the supervisors to meet with, and the principals to meet and actually kick off whatever they're doing, whether it be formative assessments, regular assessments, writing SMART goals, whatever it is that's curricular based. It's that extra time to do what needs to be done. So I think the time has been incredibly well utilized and appreciated, and we're getting somewhere, which is really nice. Like if you look at our beautiful curriculum website that Dr. McLean and the team have put together, it's pretty awesome. So please take time to look, and it's just going to get better, and that's from all the work that we've done during a pandemic. Imagine what we could do when this is all over. So it's proud. It's proud work, it's good work, and it's professional development all the way around. So it's been great, and I'd like to continue them.
Lori?
Just to touch on that, so my understanding last year when we discussed this, that hour would be used too, so that teachers could meet with each other, planning, team meetings.
Yep, they use it for all of that.
Right, but is PD filling up all that time? So if these teachers, that's my question. Are they able to meet with other staff if they need to, or are they required to be doing PD during that time? Because that wasn't my understanding what that time was for.
Nope, there's a schedule, and it actually, I could have Dr. McLean come up. She knows the schedule by heart, the PD calendar, we call it, and meeting calendar. So she can tell you how many are owned by teachers, how many meetings are owned by administration, what are we using for what.
Different times are used for different things, so we have it all planned out. This is what's happening. This is PLCs that are happening at this day. This is professional development that's happening on this day. Depending on the amount of time that we need for whatever training it is. Some trainings need more time, some trainings need less. We really did want to use that time for PLC time because we were pulling teachers. If you remember, we were pulling teachers to use that time. So some of that time is being used now for PLC so that we don't pull teachers. It's all mapped out for the year, and we always say the professional development calendar can change because it does, depending on what happens. But I think that time is vital. It has been a blessing to have that time. I actually don't know how we would get everything that we need to do done if we didn't have that time. I can share it's actually on the curriculum website, the professional development calendar. But I can share it with you so that you can see exactly how that time is being used in each of the buildings.
But those Wednesdays, that last hour isn't always PD.
Nope, not always. Sometimes it's PLC time. So that those are the teams that get together, the coaches work with the teachers, they do curriculum writing. That's their time to collaborate.
I guess I thought going into this that's what that was for. I didn't know that it was going to be so much PD.
I think what happens with us, the jargon with education, is we use everything interchangeably. So PLCs we look at as PD too, because
that's professional development
we look at
time.
it as
Curriculum writing is PLC time.
You're talking about.
We sort of use those terms interchangeably.
All set? Okay. Jen.
I know this isn't finalized yet. I think the dates in the middle are not matching up with the actual calendar, so just maybe check that out. I was looking at, like, for example, Martin Luther King Day is actually on the 16th, so just verifying those dates.
That's very good. Yep, we will do that again, even though we've done it 10 times. So the middle, did you notice any other? Yeah, you did. Okay. So middle date's not matching. And can you do that for us, please?
Okay, so it sounds like no vote tonight. We'll look for that to come back as an update at a future meeting. So, okay, next, field trip list, reference G. Dr. McRae?
Yeah, so It's, this happens all the time at this time of year. I bring this to you as far as overnight trips. We're going to do the best we can. We have out of state. We do have a music festival. We did have, the music festival. The kids went to the Big E. We want to try to get them back to as much normal as possible without being too, we're not going to Italy anytime soon. But we want to try to start doing things that are getting back to normal. So these are the ones that we are definites. We may come back to you as time goes on. We hope that our senior class, we're planning that our senior class is going to go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in March. Oh, we're not. So take that one off. Okay, got it. Okay, I thought we were doing that one. And it should be 22. I'm sorry. I just noticed.
So just a question. We approved this, I think, in June. Is there a reason it's coming back? Has there been a change to it, or? Because it says at the top, for approval at BOE regular meeting on 6/8/21, which I recall looking at this, so I was just curious.
I don't know why it's on again, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think, is there a change? Do you see a change, Andrew? Because it really affects the high school and then the middle school for Boston, Mass. Ann, is that a change? Yeah, I think. Right.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
I don't even, here's the scary thing. I don't remember seeing this.
Yeah, well, I do.
That's how much we've
I don't
been.
remember. I thought we tabled it because of the uncertainty to see like
Maybe,
what.
maybe.
We did.
I thought so too, but.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I don't remember.
We'll keep us
Want
posted.
to vote? Yeah. Do you want to vote again just
I
in
don't-
case it wasn't voted on?
Sure.
One's already happened, so.
Yeah.
Two have already happened.
All
Now
right.
I'm getting worried that
Well,
we
it's
may
not
have
on the
tabled
agenda
it.
for approval either.
The Big E trip did not happen. I mean, so June 8th.
so we didn't end
right?
up going.
June
I
8th
thought we did.
was pre-Delta.
See, that goes to tell you how
Right,
much.
and then Delta happened, so we're in a very different spot
Okay.
with all of those trips.
So all of these dates look like they're February 22 is the next
Yep.
earliest date, so
Yep.
let's just see what we did at the last meeting and put it on the agenda for a future meeting. There's no
Okay.
reason we have to vote if these events are in February.
Sure, and your superintendent I didn't even realize that we didn't go, so there you go. So don't vote on it, keep it, bring it to another meeting
Yeah.
in December or
Sure.
January, so we know when
Well, I mean, I don't know what planning goes into this. I'm assuming we have to book hotels before January, so.
we do, and we book, and
No,
some
we
are
did a
really
month.
good with
See what-
reimbursement, and some are not.
Yeah,
That's-
we have to start collecting down payments if we're gonna venture far away at some point, for an overnight. But well, the earlier we can approve them, the better. But at the same time, everyone who went through the approval process for that in terms of staff and whatnot, we're in a very different position right now. So that senior trip, instead of doing the overnight in Philadelphia, we're looking at doing 2 to 3 day trips for them to take that place. So like a Six Flags, and then some other things that get us there and get us back, so we don't find ourselves in a quarantine situation where kids can't come back for 2 weeks.
Right. Okay.
In other states. That would be that. Yeah.
Either in 2 weeks or next month if you want to vote on it.
Okay, and I'll keep track with Mr. Cockle a little bit better on.
Okay. Next, action stipend approval, reference H. Is there a motion? Motion by Lori, is there a second? Second by Catherine, any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Okay, next, human resources personnel activity, reference I. Are there any questions?
Just quickly, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to let you know 93% of our our adults are vaccinated.
District-wide?
93. Adults. Yeah, I don't have the student. Staff, yeah, all right, the staff.
Okay, Jen?
I was wondering if the science position had been filled, or what was going on with that at WIS, sorry.
Yes, it has been filled by a teacher, an internal teacher, and we'll be looking for her replacement. We are looking for her replacement so that she can do that. So, Miss Palazzo.
Okay, principal reports, references J, K, L, and M. Are there any questions on those? Hearing none. Okay, on to some policies. So 3 policies, we'll take them in order. So these are on the agenda for a second read, but we really didn't have a lot of time to talk about them at our last meeting, so we put them on for a second read at this meeting, but we can discuss them and put them on next meeting for a vote if we need to. So we'll take the first one, reference N, Title I, Parent and Family Engagement Policy. Dr. Macri, I don't know if you want to give any background on that.
No, it's a mandated policy. We are obligated, and we want to, obviously, to make sure that all stakeholders are involved in having a discussion about our Title I funds. Dr. McLean and Ms. O'Leary lead this committee, and I believe everyone was involved in making decisions on how we spend the money, and we're just updating our policy to make sure we actually follow legislation.
Okay. If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Dipty, second by Jen. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, next. Transgender and gender non-conforming youth, policy 5145.53, reference O. So the policy committee had 2 reads of this proposed policy, made some suggestions, and wanted to bring it to the full board for its consideration, and that's why it's here. So, Dr. Macri, do you want to give any background on this policy?
Sure. So we obviously, number one priority, as we talked about earlier, when it comes to our students' health, that's number one, their physical health, their mental health. We do have students that are transgender or non-conforming, and some people feel that that has a negative connotation, but it is actually the appropriate word to be using. I want kids to come to school and feel safe and to be acknowledged for who they are. And in doing that, we'd be moving forward a policy that I feel that I highly recommend for our children and their well-being. It is not a mandatory policy. I feel it is an extremely important policy, and we will be one of, not the first district, but we will be a district that is adopting a policy sooner rather than later, that really makes sure that systemically we are looking at ourselves when we're looking at every child and making good decisions for all children. And it's going to take time because there's a lot of things that we're not used to. For example, pronoun changes and things like that. It's difficult, but it's needed. And it starts with policy and practice. So in order to make sure we put this into practice, we need to hold ourselves accountable as a district and have a policy and start putting it into practice. So I am asking you to please highly consider this policy for the purpose of doing what's best for all of our students.
Just a question that, as a district, can I just make a comment, John, or ask a question? There's a motion by John before.
I'm moving the policy.
Yes. Okay. There's a motion on the floor by John. Before it's seconded, just have a question. Are we, as a district, doing most of what's in here anyway? So is this just formalizing what we're already doing in practice?
Yes, we are. We're doing the absolute best. I'm not saying by any means that we are perfect. We are getting trained. We are working with our staff. We are working on ourselves because this is equity, right? So we really need to learn more so that we could do better. And we know better, and now we have to do better. So yes, and it's holding us accountable for continuing to do this and then learning more and doing better by our kids. So yes, we are, and not that we sometimes we don't make mistakes. I can't say that we won't, but we are going to do our darndest to make sure we stick to this policy.
So any other questions? Okay, Selena.
Why's my speaker so loud?
I think it's everybody's.
First of all, I'm just a little curious why we have bullying within this when we have a separate anti-bullying policy that could include some of this.
So what happens, and the lawyers in the room, I think there's a few, know, what happens sometimes last minute with legislation is that a bunch of stuff gets thrown into legislation. And so there's repetitiveness throughout. Pretty much, if you were to look at all of our policies, I would guarantee that you'd almost see something very similar or almost the same in another policy. So it's just, it's here to make sure that we are taking that into consideration and putting a spotlight on it. One policy doesn't supersede another policy. It's making sure that we're pulling it out and making sure that we are being specific regarding our transgender and non-conforming youth and bullying. But every student is included in the bullying. So it's like double covering things. And like I said, if you look at a lot of policies, if you're bored and you want to look at them for me and look at how they actually do that quite often, that would be great, but it does happen often.
And then as part of that, in the names pronoun section where it says the intentional or persistent refusal to respect a student's gender identity, like referring to the student by name that doesn't correspond, is that intended toward faculty or students or everyone? Because I think some younger students might genuinely be confused, and I wouldn't, want them to get in trouble for something they're confused about.
No, I think it's more, the intent of this is for staff, adults, who refuse to acknowledge the student for the gender or that they want to be, or maybe their identity, how they see themselves, and continuously and intentionally saying he or she when the student would like to be addressed as they. Could it happen with students, and is it an accident? That's a whole different ballgame. Is it intentional by other students? That can be considered, we'd have to investigate. That could be considered a form of bullying. You have to look at every situation individually, but this is basically saying to our staff and each other that if a student wants to choose their gender identity, we have to respect it, and they can't refuse to respect it because there will be repercussions. But unintentional, forgetting, making mistakes, it's going to happen. It happens all the time. And I think eventually you will get used to it, especially the they pronoun, because we've looked at it as just plural for so long. We will make mistakes, but this is really for the intentional piece.
Thank you. And then lastly, right below it, in the gender segregated activities, I don't know how far you're taking that, but I also noticed it says, such as for selected health education classes, it's crossed out. So are we saying we're not going to?
We don't now.
We don't?
No.
I didn't realize that. Okay. So are we pretty much eliminating the use of the words boys and girls in class? Or is this more, we can't have necessarily a boy line and a girl line in class?
Well, that's a great question. Are we mandated by legislation to say there's a boy line and a girl line or not? No, we are not. Can we still say he or she? Yes, we can. There's no legislation that specifically says you may never use this again. However, what we are doing is training our staff to be responsive to the needs of the students in their classroom and in their school, and in our district. So for example, are we using he or she? Is it necessary? Does it confuse people if we say they? It could perhaps. We can address the person by their name. We could address a group in a very different manner so that the person who is gender, and I'm really talking about not sure, the gender identity is they at this point. What are we doing in that particular classroom? What are we doing in our school to make sure that we're not putting that child or students in a situation where they have to make a decision that they're not sure of? And will we get there eventually? I would say yes. We will probably get there eventually where we won't have boys and girls lines, and we won't have just because some kids we know. Some kids may be struggling and we don't know with making a decision. So we really have to think deeply about this, which is why the training is so important, because we have students who their pronoun is they, but we may have some students who haven't discovered that yet. And we want to be really in tune, because there is a lot of mental health concerns and things that could happen that could impact these students' lives, and we don't want to perpetuate it.
No, I understand all that. And
Yeah.
definitely appreciate it. I just wondered, if this is a little bit unclear to maybe some staff, but with the training coupled with
Right.
this,
It's the training, which is really important. It's talking about it and having conversations and not being afraid to make mistakes. That's really important. So, yeah, this is a starting point. We have a lot of work to do, but it's good work.
just to be, one more question. So you're not saying that students can no longer be referred to as he, she. You're more referring to the student that may not associate as that and just being respectful of that. But you're
Right.
not eliminating the use of the pronouns in class, basically.
Right. We can't, because obviously everybody gets to select their own pronoun, right? So we wouldn't eliminate he or she if someone, right. The tricky part and I want to be really open about it, the tricky part when it comes to schools, right? And even in life period, it's just different at workplaces, but kids are still figuring themselves out. So we want to know that this actually affects a child, and we don't know which child it may affect. So just being more cognizant. It doesn't mean that teachers won't. Teachers use friends. Teachers use, all different words that we could possibly use, which will make everybody feel more inclusive. Will boys and girls come out? I would be lying if I said that it's not going to. I'm sure that it will. Will a child who is positive that he or she or they be addressed that way? Yes. But we also have to remember as we move forward, and our forward thinking is that we have kids who are not sure, and that is a reality that we have to, like I said, be cognizant of. Nothing, and I truly want to believe that nothing we do is intentional. It's about learning and moving forward. No one's getting in trouble for using pronouns that they're going to slip naturally out of all of our mouths. But we're open to discussion about it because we want what's best for every child.
Thank you.
Jen?
I think in that same section, the gender segregated activities, the line, I think that it just has me like a little concerned, is just in situations where students are segregated by gender, students should be included in the group that corresponds to their gender identity. But what if it is a student who is gender non-conforming?
Mm-hmm.
What happens with those students?
It's a good question. It's a great question. Not really. That's every single situation has to really be thought out and discussed with family or just the student, because sometimes family isn't involved because they don't agree either. The law says that a student gets to decide, and their parents don't have to necessarily agree, or the adult in their life. we could add something to that. Where students are segregated, students should be included in the group that corresponds to their gender. We could have a third group. I mean, a they group. You know, if that could be a discussion that is had, because that could be their gender identity is they, which is non-conforming. We could add, I'm trying to think, students should be included in the group that corresponds to their gender identity, or I have to think about it. I'd like to get some input from experts on how we could add something here, if that's okay. It's the first read for this anyway, so let me.
Well, this is a second read.
Oh, this is second.
So
So
there's a motion on the floor which can be tabled.
Well, there's no second on the motion.
Right, correct. So it can just sit, John?
is
Yeah, so it can sit, it's fine.
or we can try and think of something.
I would rather get it right.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. If it's that important, as much as I'd like to see this passed, if you would like for me to inquire with experts and see how we could fix this, then we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So let's look into that. Okay. Good discussion, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Lastly, reference P, action for the, to approve the reference P students dress and grooming policy. Dr. Macri, anything here to add?
Yes, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I get my notes right. Okay, and this is, we just needed to update our policy. We were very outdated, and then the schools will be able to update their policy as the district updates their policy. So this will be our district policy, and then the schools will mimic, obviously, the district in the handbook.
So any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Catherine, second by Dipty. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. To board committee reports, policy committee, no report attached. We did meet today. So there'll be some more policies coming to the full board. Facilities and technology, there's a report attached as reference Q. Selena, did you want to add anything?
I just need to add under new business item C, we had discussed lighting in the auditorium of Cromwell High
Oh,
School, and that's omitted.
yes.
So I'll add that, and we'll approve it at the next facilities meeting.
Any questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Topics for future agendas and possible action to approve additional topics. Now we talked about the school calendar and the transgender and gender non-conforming youth policy, which will come back for future meetings, and the out-of-state field trip list. So if you can just,
I don't even remember. Yes.
if you want to slot those in where you see fit.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be right now, but
yeah.
but whenever you think is best.
I'll talk to the administration and to Sal and everyone else who has input.
Okay.
Okay.
Comments, updates, and announcements from board members and administrators. Any administrators? No? Alessandra? Our student reps? Anything to add? Lou?
This is my last board meeting as a member of the Board of Education, so I want to take a moment to thank the rest of all the board members. You guys have been, it's been a short ride for me, but it's been eventful and a learning experience. So I want to thank the board members, the chair and Dr. Macri, the rest of the administrators for your hospitality and the learning I did. So I want to thank you all for let me be a part of this special group, and I hope and wish you all the best of luck in your continued success, and I'll still be around, hopefully. So thank you, one and all.
Thank you. So you will not be at the meeting in October, 26th, I believe? We have one more meeting in October.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Oh.
So you're premature.
I thought it was November 9th. I'm sorry, because there's
No, we have one more meeting in October.
So I will just
save that.
record this and just replay it on the 20.
So I hope you're not,
Good, because I don't have my thank you speeches yet.
Well, hey, if between now and then something happens, then.
I heard that. Don't let him come next time.
Thank you, John.
Well, good luck in the election if you're not here.
Thank you.
All right, Lori. Dr. Macri? John? John, anything for you? All set. So Lindsay had to leave a little.
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay had to leave a little early. She asked me to make one announcement. The president of the PTO is asking if any Board of Ed members are willing to judge the Trick or Trunk contest. The PTO is looking for 1 or 2 members to help judge. So if you are wanting to do that, please reach out to the ECS WIS PTO president from Lindsay. The Trick or Trunk is October 23rd from 5 to 7:30 p.m.
What day is that?
Saturday. Selena? Jen? Dipti? Catherine? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Selena, second by Catherine. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned at 9:12. Thank you and have a good evening. Thanks, John. Have a good night.
The last party in the